Hi, and welcome to this AI and C# video on why it's time to switch to Responses API in OpenAI. So, for a long time, OpenAI have had two ways of communicating which were roughly the same. One of them was called Chat Client, and one was called Responses API. Responses API is the newest one, and it has some additional features, like, for example, reasoning summaries are only able to be done in Responses API. Web searches and code interpreter the same, while chat client itself was just simple and stable, and this was a little more unstable in the past. Nowadays, it's not really anything. But one thing has been annoying about Responses API, and that is that it's still technically experimental mode in the OpenAI NuGet package. And for that reason, whenever you use it, you need to put in this pragma in order to disable it as an experimental feature. I've checked up because of this video on what the latest date is. The last reply from them is in April 2026, saying that they don't have a timeline yet for when this goes away. But at the same time, I don't think they will break too much, if ever be. But why would I change now? Because when I do normal AI in most cases, I don't need these three special features. So why deal with the warning disable and perhaps writing the code in a different way? Well, let me show you. So I have a small sample here. The sample being, find it here. In the samples repo, it's called time to switch to the Responses API under other topics. And what I have here is that I'm just doing a normal Azure OpenAI client, and I'm doing the same for the um, Agent Framework Toolkits, which is my NuGet package on top of Agent Framework. This would work exactly the same in OpenAI, but we're just using Azure. And we're gonna ask a question: what's the weather like in Paris? And we're gonna use a small tool in order to do that. Nothing special down here. Just some hard-coded values, so we can try tools. And then I'm gonna use one of the models I've used a lot in the past, ChatGPT 4 Mini, for smaller workloads. Of course, there can be the bigger models, but it would be the same if we used ChatGPT 5.4. And then I'm gonna try and use it in various different setups. So here first, I'm using the client.getChat client, the one I've used in most of my sample code throughout this series. And then I've said as AI agent, where I give the tool. And if I do that, of course, it can answer us that it is in Paris, it's sunny and 19 degrees. So far, so good. Then I do it without any tools, but just reasoning. And reasoning, of course, is this extra step you need to put in with raw representation factory and everything. No tools in this one, so of course it won't. It will come back and say it can't check it out because it doesn't have the tool, and but will try and answer as much as possible. Okay. So I will explain why I have this in a little while. So now I'm gonna go and do the same with chat client, having a tool and reasoning. This is a very common scenario because you want to have it a faster response because your question might be easy, so you don't need extra reasoning and spend extra tokens. And if you see, that works fine as well. And finally, sorry, I have it for Responses API. Does exactly the same. Let me jump up here again so we can see it. So here I'm using the Responses client, and this one requires this extra pragma warning disable up here in order to work. But if we use that and we use reasoning as well here, we get the same result, of course, it's the same tool, and we get back that it's sunny and 19 degrees. So all of this work for agent framework, we can do the same. We see there we just take the agent factory and create our agent with the model, the tools, and the reasoning. One of the reasons I made the NuGet package is because this is much more simpler to look at than all of this up here. But it gives, of course, the same response because behind the scenes, the package is just packing in the same code as we do up here. And we get sunny at 19 degrees. So nothing special here. And we might think, okay, why in the world still switch? Well, there's a reason. And the reason is that we want to go to a new model. In this case, we want to go to the replacement of 5.4 Mini, and we want to use 5.6 Luna instead. So if we run this code, we haven't changed anything but the model. And so I will just skip over these. So a chat client with normal tools, no reasoning or anything, in 5.6 Luna, still comes back. One without a tool but low reasoning, still can check live, but needs to just write some text back. But then we come to the interesting part. Now we're doing chat client with a tool and low reasoning. Let me jump into it. So we can still make the agent, no problem. But the second we use the agent, we actually get an exception. And that exception, you can see it over here, is we get an invalid request. And it tells us very strictly what is wrong. Function tools with reasoning effort are not supported for ChatGPT 5.6 Luna in completion. This is the completion endpoint. Use responses instead. And this is the reason for the entire video. In 5.6 Luna, Terra and Sol, and actually also in 5.5, but since 5.5 didn't exist in a mini version, many of us didn't use it. You can't do tools and reasoning at the same time. While if you go for responses API and does the same with tools and reasoning at the same time, it still works. And finally, if we go and do it with Agent Framework, you'll see we get exactly the same error message as well, because behind the scenes, if you don't tell anything to Agent Framework, it's doing chat completion because that was the most convenient and the most stable at the time of that was created. So that is the reason why you will begin to see that all my videos going forward will use the Responses API. And I might even go in and take the entire catalog of what I have built so far and turn it into Responses client. Responses is not more advanced other than we need to give the model here at the end instead of giving it here. So in chat client, we give it here. In responses client, we give it as part of the as AI agent. That's the only real difference there is. There's a little about reasoning here that this is a create response object, while this is a chat completion object. But else, there's not much to it. But what about Agent Framework toolkit that I have made? Well, as I mentioned, a default use chat client, but you can easily switch that out by going to where you either set the connection and say default client type equal responses API. Then it will begin to use responses API instead. Or if you want to do it agent by agent, you can simply say client factory client type equal responses API. It's just if you don't specify anything, it will be chat client. So that is the reason why it in my book, it's time to switch to the Responses API. And with that, thank you for attending. See you in the next one.